Can you guys hear me?
I
think Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. The video's still a bit frozen.
Uh-oh.
That's okay.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's coming back now. Yeah.
Okay. What was I saying?
I said something really profound, and
yeah.
now I've forgotten it. Goodness gracious me, we are back. This is the open source. Welcome everybody. Today, Tom and I are joined by Omer Artun, author of the book Predictive Marketing, and also Chief Science Officer at Acquia. Welcome, Omer.
Thank you. Thanks, James. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, great to have you here. We were just talking about time zones because you split yourself between Turkey and California most of the time, right, Omer?
Correct, yes.
And so fortunately, you're in Turkey today because it's 1 p.m.-ish in the UK, which means it's 3 or so for you. But if you would have been in California, that would have been stupidly early this morning. So
that would be 5 a.m., yes.
Well, so thanks for joining us. We're going to go straight into our news article. I thought I'd bring up one of your news articles, actually, Omer, and this is from just a couple of months ago, back in May, title being Hope, Hype and Humans, the Foundations of AI and Marketing. Now, I know that we're going to come on and discuss AI and machine learning and all good things in a little bit, and a little bit about your book, Predictive Marketing, too. But I just wanted to show this article because I loved it because it not only talks about, the role that technology plays, but it also talks about the role that humans play. And it kind of plays off on the fact that technology is never going to replace humans completely, but it's almost the combination of technology and humans together that can really make the difference. Is that right? Do you feel like?
That's absolutely right. So the best analogy I could make is, you can dig the ground with your hands or with a shovel, but if somebody gave you an excavator, you could dig much faster. So it doesn't change the fact that you need a human to decide what to do.
Yeah.
Or the creative process of building, but the tool just makes it faster and better and more precise and much bigger scale and so forth. So if you're dealing with butcher shop, or a fishmonger with 100 customers, you can build a relationship and do all sorts of marketing, people's preferences. But if you have 5 million customers, you need an excavator, and that excavator is the AI or machine learning or whatever you want to call it.
So before we go too far down that route, then maybe just to continue your introduction, could you tell us a little bit about you and your past and your experience? And
sure, I'll give you my background. So I have a degree in engineering, and then I also was very interested in physics. So I started my PhD in physics, and one of the classes that really took my attention this is like 1991, was neural networks and fuzzy learning. And in that book, there was a chapter that was written by later my advisor, Leon Cooper, who won the Nobel Prize in physics. And then he thought that the whole area of learning and memory and understanding how the brain works was really behind the times. And he basically dedicated the rest of his career in this field of, using mathematics to understand how brain works. And some of that is kind of helping the neuroscience world, and half of that is helping algorithms to basically mimic human intelligence, which is kind of then became neural networks. I then did my PhD with him in machine learning, and I also have a PhD in physics. And then at that point, I realized that I wasn't smart enough to become a professor, and realized that business world is better for me. So I went to work for McKinsey and Company in New York. Then I realized that my passion of this whole neural networks, machine learning, I thought there was a huge application missing in business, and it could add a lot of value. Since machine learning is kind of trying to mimic how humans learn and think and so forth, it's best applied to problems where human decision-making process is involved, because it means that you have to learn something, you have to forget, people's taste and decisions change. So systems that naturally learn and forget, that are kind of smart or intelligent systems, is the best place to apply this. And then I realized that the kind of stuff that I was doing, applying analytics to marketing and customer data, was a big trend. Everybody was trying to shift from being channel centric and product centric into becoming customer centric. And to do that, you need to understand each customer individually, their value, their preferences, and so forth. And that's when I started AgileOne, which is basically how do you leverage customer data to do better marketing and market to those people in a more personalized way.
I've got a million questions brewing as a marketer, right? This stuff completely fascinates me. Let's talk a little bit about AgileOne. So you obviously founded that business and of course have since sold it to Acquia, but it sounds like it came about just from that, passion of wanting to help the businesses that you've been working for, right?
I mean, one of the other things is like I'm even though I'm helping the consumer economy, one of the things that I was really frustrated with was there was a lot of waste in marketing. I mean, people were like, if you remember the Seinfeld episode where they were stuffing catalogs into the mailboxes, and one of the catalogs is like the micro warehouse catalog. So I went to work for them to optimize like how much less paper waste they can produce. But then, of course, switch to other things like how do you increase conversions and so forth, which is the other side.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, are we getting closer to a point where we don't necessarily need big data to make accurate decisions? I.e., we could have a pool of data that's not great quality, but there is enough AI to effectively take a segment of that and make a best guess.
I mean, the answer is yes and no, because there are certain problems you need bigger data for, and there are certain problems that you can do small data would be perfectly fine. For example, like if you make a purchase and with that purchase you then buy 5 other things in the next 2 weeks, that's small data. Like that's not a big problem. But people who browse stuff, let's say they browse like Amazon's catalog of 1 million products, and then everybody who browses other things that are very dispersed, right? The information in that second scenario is much less dense, like much sparse. So you need bigger data to kind of extract information out of that. So it depends a little bit on the information load of the problem you're trying to solve, the dimensionality of the problem. So for example, like if you're selling outfits or like a complex electronic product, there's so many dimensions. And if you're trying to understand people's behavior against those dimensions, in AI and machine learning, there's a term called curse of dimensionality. As the dimensionality increases exponentially, you need more data because you need to basically be looking for combinatorial statistics of those dimensions. So the answer is yes and no. I think it depends on the problem. And of course, I've seen many things. I've seen people trying to do really basic stuff where they need to employ like more complex things, or vice versa. People take like these big AI things, apply it to like a 5 product scenario, which just doesn't make any sense. So again, it's a tool. I mean, hammer might be the right thing to build a table, but if you brought a jackhammer, you can't build a table with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the right tool for the right job is a better way to think about it.
And so one of the things that you talked about just before is, reducing waste in marketing. And I love the example of, just catalogs. That's such a basic but true example, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I feel like we sometimes suffer with in marketing is almost too much data. We need a way to digest that data. And I guess the part of the theory potentially is that, machine learning or AI could provide marketers with the next best action more readily than, trying to just look through an Excel report of previous programs and campaigns that run and seeing who's responded.
Of course.
Do you think there's a breakthrough moment on the horizon for machine learning to guide marketers?
I think, in my opinion, the tools are almost there. They're not 100% there, to be honest with you. I think the biggest impediment is the staff and the execution that depends on the marketing teams. For that, you need a different type of marketer. So a lot of marketers come from kind of more creative background and more kind of campaign background and so forth. And there's, to be able to utilize like the next best offer and so forth and understand the, customer experience aspect of it and other aspects of it, you need more technical marketers, some people who can understand what an algorithm is, what it does, be able to question it, be able to apply it to the problem at hand. There are very few people like that. With one of my first few customers, which were heavy in, they used to spend like almost $100 million in catalog marketing. I did 180 tests to prove to them that, they should reduce their catalog spend in these areas with this frequency and so forth. They did it, but they kept checking it against, their previous methods until today, like for 10 years. They still don't believe it.
But do they not trust it because they don't understand it, or do they not trust it because of the output? But if they understood it and they did have, like you say, a role that was a techie marketer, do you think that would make a difference in terms of trust?
That would have made a difference, yeah. For example, like this is a very simple approach. Like, people are trying to figure out like who's likely to respond to a catalog. And most marketers since the 50s of, the Life magazine, they use something called RFM modeling, or RFM, like recency, frequency, monetary value, which basically they do is like, how long ago have you bought from me? What was their value when you ordered? How frequently do you order from me? Like they basically put people into those buckets and they decide based on that. This is really easy to understand. But if you use machine learning, which is what we did, we could basically improve their targeting by 40%. And 40% improvement was on the order of like $22-25 million of decrease in spend, where you could achieve the same results. That was just wasted money.
I can fully understand why that would be kind of a mountain to climb for some companies, but it must be frustrating to see that.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I think the prime time for AI is not there yet in terms of the tools are there, the problems are there, but to be able to take it and apply it, like if I take 100 marketers out there, I think, it's basically easily understood and executed by maybe 20% of those. But the more results and, the more success stories, other people will either believe it and do it, or they'll basically find the right folks to understand and make that mainstream for them.
Let's assume that we've all applied AI to our marketing, right? And the goal and the end goal of every marketer really should be to deliver a better CX, a better customer experience at the end of the day. So what's the best customer experience that you've ever had?
The best experiences I have is things that are not like, things that are unexpected. So for example, there was a restaurant that I went to, and which was like an expensive, like Michelin star restaurant. And on the way out, they gave you a thank you package with a cake so that you can eat it the next morning.
That's really cool. I think I'm only happy if when I leave a restaurant, I'm still chewing on the way out.
One of mine is actually quite similar in the sense that it was not expected. It's with an airline that a lot of people might not be the biggest fans of, so this could be controversial, and that's British Airways. So I'll leave that there. We won't open the politics of British Airways up into this podcast today. But I flew home from Paris on my birthday. I just had one of those weeks where I'd literally traveled 8,000 miles and was, ready to get home, see my family, celebrate my birthday. And out of nowhere, they walked over to me and they brought me a glass of champagne and said, happy birthday. And I was not sat in business class. I was sat at the back of the plane, crammed in with like my face against the window, just like the rest of us, right? But for me, after that really hard week at work and lots of traveling, just made my week. So yeah, well done, BA, for at least that.
For creating best, in my opinion, experiences, have you guys heard what's called a peak end theory?
No.
Like peak and end, okay? So it's a psychological heuristic that basically says if you're trying to design an experience, what people remember is the most intense moment, the peak of an experience, and the end. They don't remember the beginning, they don't remember the average, and it could be applied to both pleasant experiences like eating or unpleasant experiences like colonoscopy, right? Like, and it's regardless of the time it takes as well.
What immediately came into my mind was the cornetto. Are you aware of this ice cream?
Yes.
It always has that bit of solid chocolate at the end. Genius.
Exactly.
And I guess that brings us back to the first thing we said at the beginning of the show, which was that you mentioned, Omer, which is like that level of human intervention that is essential in everything we do, and the AI and predictive analysis, because it's that bit of human intervention that gives that special touch to the customer experience, no matter how much data we have.
Yeah, I mean, AI is built for taking the data and generalizing it, like finding patterns in it, right? Whereas these type of things that you do, a little bit here, a little bit there, where the human touch is not systematic, we're not trying to generalize anything. We're trying to be spur of the moment, more creative and all that. Creativity is what the humans are good at, which AI will never be.
Gives us all some hope that we are worth something at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it won't end up like Skynet.
Absolutely. Omer, it's been wonderful to get to know you a little bit today. It's been wonderful to hear your story. Thanks so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys.